Consider This, with host Carol Schrader, is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to UNO. It was last week that we talked about the first 100 years of a church in Omaha, Dundee Presbyterian, with the author of someone who just written the history of that church. Kind of interesting because it tied into the history of Omaha. Well, have we got a deal for you today? We have a new religious edifice about to open, but it is certainly not without its history, both the denomination itself and with regard to the history here in Omaha and the Midwest. My guest today, and I'm very proud to introduce to you, Louis Butler has just been named president of the Winter Quarters Temple.
Right.
Of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Omaha. Brand new facility about to open. Also with us today, a real privilege, a fellow that's been around this town for a while. His name is Gale Holmes, and we're dubbing him historian at large, but he's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is kind of our presiding expert at the moment about the Mormon Trail and how that ties in. Now we're going to give you a little sneak peek at the Winter Quarters Temple. We're going to do that right now, and it is a beautiful facility. It is up just south of 34th and State, just south of the Mormon Pioneer Cemetery, which you get a nice view of here. It is a $6 million building, and it is done with class and beauty. The stained glass windows are incredible. I mean, there's no other word for it. Various rooms throughout the building full of light, full of air, and particular touches, remnant or reminders of the Mormon Trail and the contribution that those Mormon souls made in developing the West. Here's the baptismal area here, and it is just, you ought to see the base of that. It's incredible. And the thing about this temple, if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, one of your goals that you work for is to go to the temple to do a number of things that are specific to that group of people. But if you are not Mormon, if you're not a Mormon, you cannot go in the temple except for just a couple of weeks, and it will be open to the public to sort of kick off this beautiful new facility. Now, the Winter Quarters Temple, the Nebraska, will be open Friday, March 30th through Saturday, April 14th, except Saturday, the 31st, and on Sundays. Now, one of the keys here, and as I said, it's at about 34th and State, actually just south of that, south of the Mormon Pioneer Cemetery. The key to this is that they are nice enough, because of the parking situation, to provide a shuttle bus from NP Dodge Park. But you see the phone number on your screen, and that would be the number to call to get more information about the specific times. Now we get to our guests. We're just chock full of information, but we wanted you to be able to see and get a little feel. And thank you for providing that tape for us. The Winter Quarters Temple, and as I said, you have just been named president, and you are not from here originally, Idaho, but you are sort of a local boy made good now. This is quite an honor to even get this temple here, is it not?
Well, it certainly is, and it's something that, of course, the members of the church in this area have worked for and prayed for and yearned for many, many years. Early on, the members of the church here who desired to attend a temple had to go to Salt Lake City. That would be a week's trip for them, a couple of days traveling out there, spend 2 or 3 days, and they come back. In later times, we've gone to Dallas, we've gone to Chicago, we've gone to Denver, and most recently to St. Louis. And now, thank goodness, we can come here, and it's close and convenient.
Now, if I've got my map right, in all of South Dakota, until now, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri had one in St. Louis, but there was about a 5-state area that was, depending on where you were pretty far from a temple.
Sure, up to 10 or 12 hours travel time for some people. For here, it was 8 hours for us to get to Chicago, about 7.5 to St. Louis. And so, yes, it's been an all-day drive.
And this is the 104th
The 104th temple. Interestingly, the first 150 years of the church or so, or 60 years, built approximately 50 temples. In the last 5 years, we've built 54 more under the direction of our prophet, President Gordon B. Hinckley, who has a special feel for this work and made the decision about 5 years ago to increase the availability of temples to our members. His comment was, I believe, we need to bring the temples to the people to make it more convenient and easy for them to attend and participate in that great work.
So when they decided to put a temple here, I'm sure, I mean, I've never seen it in writing in any of the handouts you gave, but the fact that this is on the Mormon Trail at the site of the famous winter quarters, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, doesn't it, Gail?
It's certainly a wonderful development that highlights the movement of the Latter-day Saints from various parts of the United States and Canada and Europe through here to the Great Salt Lake Valley.
And we, you know, I think sometimes people that even live in, a lot of people watch the show that are out just outside of Omaha, and it does go statewide. But we in Omaha, though most people somewhere in their history sort of understood the importance of the Mormon Trail, I still think that it's still kind of a mystery, as for many of us, your church is in general. And this is kind of an opportunity to relive some of that history and learn a little more about kind of a, to many of us who call ourselves Christians or don't, that are not Mormons, it will help sort of get rid of some of this mystery, wouldn't it, to make a...
Well, we certainly would hope so. We invite everyone who has any interest at all to come to this open house. I firmly believe that no matter what your faith might be now, or what it might be in the future, that if you are a person who has a belief in a Heavenly Father and have a relationship with Him in any way, I cannot help but believe that that relationship will be strengthened if you would come to this temple and just spend a little time and take a tour there and feel the spirit of that place and listen to the tour that'll be given, the instruction or the information that'll be passed on. It'll be a wonderful experience, and we invite everyone.
You know, and I think that certainly for Mormons, this will put, you know, the Mormon Trail has always sort of been on the map, a place to visit, the winter quarters, the cemetery, but this is obviously going to bring, there's 35,000, as I understand it, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints in this district.
In the Temple District, that's about right.
But they're, you know, they will come from all over because I think of the historical link.
This temple is unique in this sense. It is the second leg, really, of three temples that are specifically historically founded. The first was dedicated about a year ago in Palmyra, New York, with the birthplace of the church, where the prophet Joseph organized the church, and this has great significance to members of the church. This temple at Winter Quarters is the second leg of that, with great significance to what occurred to the saints here as they made their trek west, as Gail mentioned, as the gathering place here before they left for Salt Lake. And the third piece of that will be next year sometime. The Nauvoo Temple will be dedicated. So those three temples have
now Nauvoo is not a town name that clicks with everybody.
Nauvoo, Illinois.
I mean, you folks have it on the back, you know, just on the tip of your tongue.
Nauvoo, Illinois is a gathering place of the saints, and where one of the original temples, the second temple, was constructed in the church, was in Nauvoo, and the saints weren't able to really use that before they left in their trek west. That temple was destroyed by a cyclone and weather, and ultimately was completely torn down. It is now being rebuilt and as a replica, or very nearly the same as the original. And that temple, as I mentioned, will be dedicated sometime next year. So then we have the three temples that have great particular historical significance. And that, back to your original comment, that will be a great attraction for members of the church to come and make almost a loop and
it's almost
visit those.
And I use the word, although it has roots in other things, it's almost a pilgrimage route. in
Sure.
kind of a loose
I think so.
kind
I
of sense
think
for
so.
those that
Sure.
are
Sure.
extremely devout or have the time or the inclination. And the ultimate goal of this trip west was this desert basin that Brigham Young, who took over the church after Joseph Smith died, he looked at maps and decided that was the place. But we never should forget, especially in America where we value religious freedom, that this was a religious freedom drive as much as it was just a desire to go west. Isn't that correct?
It was. The interesting thing about the Mormon Trail is that as they moved west, realizing that many of their family members and their friends would be using the same trail. So as the Mormons went, they built roads, bridges, and ferries. And that was a great facilitator for people headed to Oregon. Many people headed to Oregon came right through here. And those going to California and the California Gold Rush. This was the primary trade and emigration route going west, using those roads, bridges, and ferries that were constructed.
And people stayed behind to actually support the emigration west of the Mormons, and they'd help anyone that came through. So they really helped the movement west. Now, there was they came through Iowa. I mean, and the Canesville, which we know now as Council Bluffs.
Right.
And on this side of the river, there were two groups that stayed in that winter of, let me get this right,
46 and 47.
46 and 47. So I mean, there were in about a 3 or 4 year period, there were several thousand Mormons on both sides of the river.
Actually, from 46 to 53, which was the major movement through here, something like 31,600 moved through here. That's a lot of people going in covered wagons with oxen team, or later, 1856 to 1860, about 3,000 went by handcart. So it was a struggle getting through here. And
Well, the interesting thing is there is a set of windows in the Winter Quarters Temple that I think is just beautiful. In fact, the fellow that out of Salt Lake City that plans the interiors of these temples was telling me that they went through literally thousands of pieces of glass to find the right glass that had a feel for clouds in it, and then the painting on these stained glass. But they're all historical elements of the Mormon trip west and the Winter Quarters. There's one of a tree and a couple sitting there looking at a gravestone. And then there's this set of cogs that was the odometer, sort of, that they came up with to figure the exact mileage from about western Nebraska on. That's when they sort of came up with it. But it's just a wonderful story. And it was a horrible winter. When we say Winter Quarters, that first winter that they stayed here after reaching an agreement with the Indians was horrible.
it was hard. It was hard, but they were highly organized, and the suffering was great, but the number of deaths was not nearly as bad as you might expect. All over America, in the winter, times were difficult when people lived in covered wagons or in log cabins.
The thing I find is we've just come out of what we call a bad winter.
Right.
And as difficult it is for some people to pay their heating bills, and it's a real trial and tribulation for some, I was looking today at those stained glass windows as little just kind of bits of the history, and saying, you know, you've got to appreciate these people who are heading west to start a new life, any pioneer that was moving. But these particular ones trying to find some religious freedom. There was some religious persecution. Joseph Smith himself was murdered in Carthage, Missouri, because people did not understand, I think, what was going on in this group of people. But it must be very special for you, particularly, because this whole trip is part of your story,
Yes, it is.
not just a little sideline.
Right.
It's especially important to us because of our family members, ancestors who were buried in this area. Something like 365 LDS were buried either at Mormon Pioneer Cemetery or at Cutler's Park, 2 or 3 miles to the west. So there are a lot of people who come back simply because they had ancestors buried here.
Now, one of the things I had always known, and I'm just going to put my ignorance out on my sleeve here for a minute, because I think that it parallels thinking of a lot of other people. I know, and have known most of my life since my mother got interested in our family tree, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the leading work group, compiler, database producer of genealogical information in the world. There's no question. Most recently, the big announcement, the Freedmen's Bank, African Americans after the Civil War, they found these, not only the luck of still finding these treasures of these people that had put money in this black bank, in essence, but they have now put it on CD. But anyway, that's aside. But I always knew that there was some connection between the Mormons and their ancestors. And but then going to the temple today, I found out with a little more clarity about the connection that you have and that you try to make in the salvation of your ancestors. I didn't know this was retroactive.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think visiting this temple in context of what goes on in the different rooms and everything, and learning, you know, why the special trips to the temple for your ancestors. You want to just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think people don't quite understand.
Well, we go to the temple the first time for ourselves to receive those and the covenants and blessings, endowment, we refer to it. Wonderful, wonderful experience. But we do that for ourselves only once. It's only necessary to do it once. But we also have a concept in our faith that families are forever. And those families include more than just our immediate family. It includes all of our ancestors and those that will follow us. We're all tied together as families, and we truly and honestly understand that that is our Heavenly Father's plan for His children, to be tied together in families. The purpose of the temples is to enhance that and to make that possible for those who would not or have not had the opportunity to attend the temple. We do vicarious work there for those who have passed on. So then that leads to the great genealogical work the church does that ties us together on the record. We know who our ancestors were. We know them by name, by place, by birth, how
and that's
many.
important to
and we
you.
tie that all together, and then we go to the temple and put that all together and firmly seal those families together for eternity. That is our concept, our belief, our understanding, and our faith. And it is the temple is central to that. Temples, in fact, are the ultimate in our faith, because that's where we accomplish that great sealing work that brings us together as families and ties us all together as brothers and sisters, as families, as children of our Heavenly Father. A wonderful experience for us. Brings us great peace, great comfort.
It's a very peaceful place, the temple, I must say, and I think you're right that any of those who believe in the higher power, the Father, God, the Father, or His love, or no matter what your religion, that, you know, peace is the ultimate, and it is a peaceful place. The sealing room where you seal these families for eternity has a very interesting thing. There's a gilt-edged framed mirror on one side of the room and an identical one on the other side of the room, positioned just ever so carefully to be right across from each other. And you see the reflection on and on. I think, in fact, one lady was telling me that it's better than at some of the temples, because they got 16 and then you can count no more because it gets so small. But the symbolism of that is really poignant in that room.
It is.
Very, very special room.
It is, and I don't know for sure. I've heard the same comment that those mirrors in our temple here are as accurate and as good as there are anywhere, and the alignment of them is such that they have told us that what you just said is a fact, that this temple has the opportunity of experiencing that probably to a greater degree than any other place.
It sent a chill
Yeah, it
on my
does, doesn't
back.
it?
It truly did.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been at some places where maybe a dressing room, well, girls have, I think, you know, where you go to a dressing room and they have the mirrors
Yeah.
just right, but this is just perfectly.
Right.
It would be hard for either of you to say what your favorite room in the temple is, and I suppose it wouldn't be diplomatically correct as the new president, but certainly there were things that affected you in there, Gail.
The sealing room is a wonderful place, but the baptism for the dead is very important. Jesus said, "Except ye be baptized of the water and of the Spirit, ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven." Now, if the Lord declared that, that must be so. That is why we are baptized for the dead, which the dead in the spirit world may accept or reject.
That's a key element of your
Absolutely.
belief.
Absolutely.
It's
And-
still personal acceptance.
That's right.
Then if they accept that, they may progress and move forward spiritually as we do here on earth. And so the temple is a very, very precious place for us.
The baptismal pool, they couldn't see it in the brief bit of video, but at the base of it is, and I don't know what material that is. It looks, this isn't what it is, but it looks almost alabaster, the white sculpture. It's the front and the front paws of 12 oxen coming out of the bottom, which we're told represents the 12 tribes of Israel.
Right.
But it is a sight to behold. It is just a sight to behold.
I think it's in 1 Kings. You can read about that in the Old Testament. It talks about a molten sea or a sea of water, and that's what that font is. And then, of course, as you mentioned, it's supported on the backs of those 12 oxen representing the 12 tribes of Israel. It is a wonderful, wonderful place. Your comment about what is the favorite room in the temple, well, I suspect most of us would say, I would say at least, it depends on what I'm doing there, or what I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for, or it might just be the mood of where I am for a particular day.
And we're
or-
all in different places
That's right.
at different
And
times.
so any given time, that favorite room will change for me.
The interesting thing is that when you sit in, I think it's the celestial room, which is the chandelier in that, and I hate, you know, I'm not a materialistic person, but it is so incredible, and it catches the light so incredibly. There are several places in that temple that I don't know if the designers realized it, that catch the light of the day so wonderfully. But in that room is this gorgeous chandelier, and it's just a very, very, very peaceful room, and it's meant to be.
Right, that's right.
It's I won't use, meditative isn't the right word, but
Well, that's not an inappropriate word, to meditate and to consider and to count our blessings and just spend some time there. People have wonderful experiences there.
well, I can understand that.
Even those who are not members of the church who have the opportunity on this tour, for example.
I loved it. I loved
There's
it. I found it a very peaceful moment. But the thing that I found most interesting was knowing that I think it's outside this window, that it's facing over the cemetery.
That's right.
And that would be, I would think that would be very special for you folks. And
yeah.
to know that, you know, those people are buried there and all that history behind them.
Very, very.
Yep.
Now, again, I want to mention the fact that this is an open house that is kind of a one-shot only
Right.
2-week period for the public before it is closed for the personal use of the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. Now, here are the dates. Friday, March 30th through Saturday, April 14th, except Saturday the 31st and Sundays, of course, because that's the Sabbath. And they are encouraging you, because of parking, to use the shuttle bus from NP Dodge Park. They're kind enough to
correct.
provide that. And the location is in historic Florence, as we like to
That's
say, who
right.
used to live up in that area. And it's, you know, roughly 34th and State.
Right.
So just to make
Right.
it easy, I could give you all how far north it is, but that's really where it is. You are expecting quite a few people, are you not?
Oh, yes.
I mean, when you got shuttle buses, you're expecting some company.
Lots of shuttle buses.
Yeah, a lot of shuttle buses. That bus will be running about every 5 or 10 minutes, whatever the time is needed. We have a rotation of buses, so there won't be any long waits, we hope. And as far as the total numbers, I hesitate to make a guess. I'll tell you what happened yesterday. Typically on the first day where we had the open house for the contractors, those men and women who worked in the temple. They and their families were invited for a special experience to go through the temple and have that tour. One of the brethren from Salt Lake just mentioned that typically 100 to 125 would be a good day. Yesterday we had about 500, I think, that came through, which is marvelous. That's astounding.
That is
It's
astounding.
wonderful.
And I must say that it's kind of an act of generosity, and certainly, I mean, you could get into good public relations and helping people understand a little better, which I think, you certainly want to do that. But, you're really going to quite an effort to allow people a taste of this.
Well, Carol, if we're not anything else, we're a missionary church.
You certainly are.
And we are not at all, we do not in any way retract from that or back away from that. We have a message and we are anxious to share it. And we hope we don't do that in any offensive way. We do not intend to do that. Another one of the great concepts and precepts of our faith is that we are good neighbors and that we are good community citizens. And we go where we go, we put down roots and we stay, and we hope we make the community better. And for all those reasons, we want to share what we enjoy and what we know to be true with others who are interested. Again, we will not ever force or be offensive, but we cannot help but be missionary-minded. We enjoy what we know, and we'd like to share that with others.
The craftsmanship of every bit of work in there, and the symbolism of the wildflowers of the states that these pilgrims traveled through, and everything, even the violets, which is one of the flowers, is in the ceiling, and there's all kinds of little details. If you are an admirer of fine craftsmanship and just wonderful taste, and carpet, you have to put little footies on, because the carpet there is pastel and very beautiful and thick and indented, but it really is an opportunity for people who love good architecture and art. You've got to see it.
We would agree. We invite anyone and everyone to come and share that experience with us.
I have to say,
You're
I
welcome.
enjoyed it, and that's why and just as a personal curiosity person, I just had to go up, and I really would encourage people to do it. I want to thank you for being with us
Well, we'll
today.
invite you back again, and bring some of your friends this time.
Oh, my husband's got to see the stained glass
Good.
windows.
We'll
Got
do
to
that.
see that.
Good.
I want to thank Louis Butler, the new president of the Winter Quarters Temple here in Omaha, and also Gail Holmes, a new fast friend, I think, a wonderful man who helped fill me in on the history of the Mormon Trail. And we want to remind you that you can actually see this program on the web. You can go to UNO-TV at unomaha.edu and stream that program back at you. So if your friends didn't get to see it, want to know more about the temple or any of our shows, please have them tune in. Thank you, gentlemen,
You're
and
welcome.
thank you for joining us this week on Consider This.
Consider This with host Carol Schrader is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television.